This video is about Empire of Ash, the upcoming Doom of Valyria prequel TV series to Game of Thrones. I already posted a big leak about it a few weeks ago to Game of Thrones Wiki. That doesn't contain everything I know about it, but I didn't want to give away too much more, but then again, I want to keep drumming up support for it. So what I realized I can do is give clarifications of things I already said in the original leak posting, but adding context from the books based on my own research, not things I was directly told, if the original post I made was a little brief. The original leak about Empire of Ash described 3 different characters from 3 different factions in it. Each one is a major POV narrator scale character. If this was one of George R. Martin's novels, they'd be a POV chapter narrator on the scale of Catelyn Stark or Jaime Lannister. Focal points for the narrative, viewpoint characters for the audience. So, I'm going to go over what we already publicly know about them, specifically through the window of these characters, and in the process give a little context on which faction each of them belongs to and what they're like. Now, the people that made Empire of Ash really did their homework. That's why I'm championing it so much. They really won me over when I saw all the detail that went into this. Trying to make what they're creating fit with what Martin already said in his books. They're not just creating some independent TV show. They see this as a responsibility to tell part of Martin's story, is the vibe I got. It felt like when someone's making a Tolkien adaptation and they really care about this is a stewardship. Not just, hey, I'm making my own thing. In fact, the series Bible was said to be based on extensive meetings with Martin. I was told that there were about half a dozen major sit-down meetings with him where he shared all of his stacks of notes on pre-Doom Valyria, or things he had never put pen to paper before, but a lot of these ideas actually came from Martin. This was emphasized. These are people who would actually be embarrassed if one of their ideas didn't come from him. And some of them they had to, extrapolate and build on what he already told them, but they count it as a point of pride when they can say, this wasn't our idea, this was Martin's idea, not the other way around. So there's a strong possibility that in broad strokes, the general setting of these factions and maybe parts of the specific characters are technically book canon, as they say. Ideas originating from Martin himself, like if they made a Targaryen conquest TV show, obviously specific dialogue would be made up by the TV writers, but Visenya Targaryen as a character is Martin's idea, and yes, she only exists as a sketch or an outline in prequel novellas or history books, but it's his idea of the character. It originated with him, and they're just expanding on it. That a lot of these characters, I'm wondering, is this a character in Martin's head just as much as Visenya Targaryen was? It's exciting to debate this and find out. There's a strong possibility they were, or at least the factions are. So it really feels like it was developed by fans of Martin and his books, and a lot of this may well turn out to be accurate for the book continuity. So like I said, I'm going to go through this by explaining stuff we already publicly knew, and how I just kept thinking, wow, all of this really fits with what we already knew about Valyria, which wasn't much, but it seemed to expand on it really well. These are people who knew you need to build off of what the books did. I'm going to start off with 3 quotes about Valyria by Martin himself. In Q&A from back in 2001, archived in the So Spake Martin collection over on Westeros.org, Martin said, Valyria at the zenith of its power was neither a kingdom nor an empire, or at least it had neither a king nor an emperor. It was more akin to the old Roman Republic. Republic, not empire. The Roman Republic. In theory, the franchise included all freeholders. The franchise is the right to vote, enfranchisement, political power. In theory, the franchise included all freeholders. that is, freeborn landholders. Of course, in practice, wealthy, highborn, and sorcerously powerful families came to dominate. Then, the World of Ice and Fire sourcebook in 2014 only gave us some tantalizing clues about Valyria and the events leading to the Doom. It was mostly focusing on their earlier wars of conquest against the Giscari and the Rhoynar, external wars, not what they were like internally. As for what Valyria itself was like living there, we have these two major quotes from World of Ice and Fire's Valyria chapter. The Valyrians had no kings, but instead called themselves the Freehold, because all the citizenry who held land had a voice. Archons might be chosen to help lead, but they were elected by the Lord's freeholder from amongst their number, and only for a limited time. Archons have been mentioned in the books before. This might be a remnant of Valyria, that Tyrosh is still ruled by an Archon, that Valyria had Archons, the World Book confirmed. Within Valyria's shining walls, 200 rival houses, as about 40 major families, vied for power and glory in court and council, rising and falling in an endless, subtle, oft-savage struggle for dominance. So Martin already established that the Valyrian freehold was essentially his fantasy analog of the Roman Republic, with dragons and magic. That it started out as a democratic republic, but after various wars of conquest, wealth and power became very concentrated in an upper elite. That it's not a true democracy anymore, and there's all these powerful aristocratic factions that really dominate everything. In the case of Valyria, it's about 40 or so major Dragonlord families that are aligned into different factions who fought various internal wars and rivalries for centuries. Now, we already knew all of that. Empire of Ash reveals these Dragonlord factions in more depth. The Sphinxes and the Young Dragons. Now, this isn't artwork I was given. This is my attempt to recreate the artwork that I saw when I was shown the series Bible. That this is more or less what their Sphinx symbol looks like. That I looked at online heraldry databases to try to recreate their sigil, and the Young Dragons symbol looked like the Targaryen symbol, but I didn't get a good look at it. It might actually be a dragon with only one head, not three. That might be something Aegon the Conqueror came up with. But I'm reusing the Targaryen symbol just for consistency here, because I'm not good enough to make my own digital artwork. So it looks like a clear, either exactly the same symbol or a clear precursor to it for the Young Dragons. The implication being the Targaryens got the idea from an earlier political faction they were in. Like I said, I want to stick to things I already said in public as much as possible, or things that are already in the books, and not new leak information. So, I already said that the Sphinxes are the conservative faction. I said the Sphinxes are the conservative faction when I made the original leak. So clearly the Young Dragons are not conservative. They're the other guys. So because they're not conservative, they're not as obsessed with keeping the bloodline pure. And not as obsessed with incest marriages, which is something Martin got from Ptolemaic Egypt, like Cleopatra, late Egypt, that they engaged in brother-sister incest marriages to keep the bloodline pure. And for the Valyrians, they think this is actually some sort of maintains a magical bloodline link with the ability to control dragons, and there might be something to that it might actually have something to do with magic, despite all the drawbacks of it and the insanity it sometimes causes. So the Young Dragons, not being as conservative, are not as obsessed with incest marriages, and on top of that, it's not unknown for some of them to even marry non-Valyrians. That at this point in time, Valyria has conquered everything from Pentos to Meereen. That they control large populations of peoples that are not from the core of Valyria itself, are now part of the lands of the Freehold. and being out and about and with them, sometimes they have children with them, the young dragons. The Sphinxes would never do that. The Sphinxes are really big into maintaining the bloodline purity. House Targaryen is part of the Young Dragons faction, and a minor family at that. When the story begins, that there are other more powerful families even within the Young Dragons. They're considered a minor member. At the beginning of the story, obviously there's going to be civil wars that shake that up, and this is going to be the story of the rise of the Targaryens. They're considered a minor family. We already knew that from World of Ice and Fire. They said they were one of the 40 families, but they were one of the least of them. So just putting two and two together here, I wasn't directly told this, but the irony that the Targaryens themselves, who we think of in later ages as, oh, they had those incest marriages, they weren't always obsessed with blood purity and incest. They were part of the non-conservative faction when they started out. And it's a mystery of, at some point, they shifted to actively embracing it, that by the time of the Doom itself, or maybe on Dragonstone, or at least by Aegon the Conqueror's time, they had wholeheartedly embraced incest marriages, to the point they would war with the Faith of the Seven over it in Maegor's time. That I wasn't told any of this, so I'm openly speculating. Was it something to do with they realized it was some magical trait that they were really maintaining? Or maybe they simply believed that they came to believe that it was a magical trait. Who knows if it really was or not? Maybe they found proof of it. Maybe they just convinced themselves of it and they had no proof. Maybe they were just obsessed with, we are the last Valyrians, we need to maintain our purity now. Why did the Targaryens suddenly shift from being part of the well, there are some incest marriages among the young dragons, but they're not really obsessed with it. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Why did they switch is surprising. And some people are complaining for the other prequel ideas of, oh, it's not the story we think we knew. They're changing this for the sake of changing this. I think this idea might have come from Martin himself, because he gave them a lot of notes on the background of Valyria, and something as major as which political faction the Targaryens are part of, probably an idea Martin himself came up with. And just, we don't know that much about Valyria now. We don't know the full history of the Targaryens before the Doom of Valyria. That nothing ever said that they were heavily invested in incest marriages before the Doom. We shall see. This is quite an intriguing mystery. But I said I want to talk about each of these three factions mostly through the window of the character that was presented as representative of each of them. Well, representative, the POV character for each of them. I don't know how is Jon Snow representative of the Starks? Well, not exactly. Is Tyrion a representative Lannister? He's a dwarf. They're all outsiders and broken things. But, quote from the original leak, one of the main characters, a POV core cast member, is a platinum blonde, black female dragon rider. One of her parents was a white Valyrian, the other a foreigner, leading some to deny that she's a real Valyrian. And, by the way, nothing I was ever told, some people just assumed, oh, her father was white. I was not told anything specific. It could just as easily be her mother. I was just told one of her parents. Which one? So we'll see how that works out. And it was interesting looking at all of the fan feedback reaction videos on YouTube of people reacting to the Empire of Ash leak. I'm bad at finding, much less making fan art, so I just screenshotted some of the artwork other people put in their videos, because they probably could choose better than me, but harder to find images of a white-haired black woman even as artwork than you would think. So other people did this already, so I just copied what they did. That on the left there is just the image that Rorist managed to use in her videos of, she's got platinum blonde Valyrian hair, probably has purple eyes, because Valyrians have purple eyes, no matter what TV shows tell you. And that they thought, I don't even know, how would you do this in live action? Open question. Is it going to be a black woman with really dark black-skinned woman with white hair, or is she going to look like the image on the right was from a Latin American fan site, thinking, with the whole colonial system in Latin America, how the Spanish it introduced official declining categories of whiteness, that you could be a mestizo mulatto person in between, not fully white, not fully at the bottom of the spectrum. So they went for more of a mixed race, cream-colored skin look, as dark, clearly not this pale white Valyrian. I think they grabbed that from some telenovela character. I don't know. I just watched their video and went, oh, this is an interesting image. So what exactly do we mean when we say, well, she doesn't look Valyrian, she has dark skin and blonde hair? Meaning what exactly? I don't know, but I'm not trying to give you a definitive idea. I'm trying to stir up discussion of what exactly does she look like. Because, well, I'll be blunt. Googling around for black woman with white hair, you tend to find a lot of fan art of the dark elves from Dungeons and Dragons, which you can see at left. So obviously that is an elf with pointy ears. I put it in because I thought the quality was good enough. Just trying to get some fuzzy mental idea of what this character looks like. At right is a picture I liked. I just grabbed from Pinterest. I have no idea what it is. And, of course, here's some images of Storm, the mutant from X-Men, black woman with white hair. I'm not really sure what that would look like exactly, but a big part of the show is the tension between Valyria and its provinces. I already said that. And that's kind of, logically, you would embody that in a biracial character, that she has a dragon. She is a dragon rider, that apparently her family thinks well of her enough to give her a dragon, but the other, like the Sphinxes, go, well, she's not a real Valyrian, she's black. But even other people, she has blonde hair, she's clearly biracial, she's clearly part Valyrian. So I thought that was a good idea of just embodying the tension of the show in this one character, and various ideas for how this should look. And would the child of a Valyrian and a black person look like that? Well, there have been examples of Targaryen children with black people in the books already. That we have Nettles from the Dance of the Dragons, who, this is official artwork of her from the animated featurette the TV show put out for season 5 about the dance, depicted her, and following the description of the books, it keeps going, she's dark-skinned and has black hair and black eyes. They guessed she must look like a Summer Islander. She grew up on Dragonstone as just this bastard child. So she managed to become a dragon rider by convincing Sheep Stealer to trust her by giving him sheep every day. So when I was being told about this, I went, oh, this character sounds like Proto-Nettles. And in my notes, I don't have names for any of these characters, proper names. I'm not hiding them from you. I wasn't told any. So in my notes, I just write down capital P, capital N, Proto-Nettles, because it instantly reminded me of her, because she's a cool character. I want to see her someday in some other Dance of the Dragons project. But Nettles looks entirely black. Like, Oberyn Martell had a daughter with a Summer Islander in the books, and she looks entirely black. This character in The Young Dragons, she clearly looks biracial. It's mixed features, that she has blonde hair. You can tell she's part Valyrian. So just of how that works. So the focus I wanted to get to with this video of just viewing The Young Dragons through the prism of this character, open speculation. Who is the black female dragon rider? I wasn't specifically told any more than that. And just, I'm allowed to speculate. I'm not giving you more spoilers. There's really 4 possibilities. I say possibilities no matter how improbable. Just physically, there's 4 things that could have happened. First choice is the most obvious. She's just some new character we've never heard about before. Entirely new, either a creation of Martin himself or the TV writers, I have no idea, but no book figure that we can identify from current materials. That's what I assumed at first. And then thinking on, I realized, well, there's actually 4 possibilities in all. The second is, maybe she's Jaenara Belaris. Jaenara Belaris is a Valyrian dragon rider who explored Sothrios for 3 years, and she's literally the only non-Targaryen Valyrian character named in the entire series. When they talk about characters from Valyria, they don't give proper names other than for the Targaryens themselves, And we don't know when Jaenara lived. She could have lived during the time before the Rhoynar conquests. She could have lived long before the Doom, but it's the only other name we have to go on. This is the full quote about her from The World of Ice and Fire in the Sothrios chapter. We do not even know the true size of Sothrios. The Giscari who settled Zamatar believed it to be a continent as large as Westeros. Jaenara Belaris flew her dragon, Terax, farther south than any man or woman had ever gone before, seeking the boiling seas and steaming rivers of legend that the south of it is unexplored, but found only endless jungle, deserts, and mountains. She returned to the freehold after 3 years to declare that Sothrios was as large as Essos, a land without end. So, if she's half black, maybe this implies that she was interested in exploring Sothrios. If she's like the daughter of some local elite governor, some local governor of the Sothrios province, and she was interested in what is beyond our southern borders. Mostly I'm just listing this, though, because it's literally the only other female name we have. There's also one other Dragonlord who is in Quohor named Orion, but we don't even have his last name, and it's a girl. It's literally the only other one, and I thought, well, maybe they'd want to reuse that name, or Martin himself would want to reuse it. But that's a second possibility. The third possibility which struck me is maybe she's actually Daenerys Targaryen. Now, we were actually never given any physical description of Daenerys the Dreamer. It's not like where you open up the book and it goes, here's yet another, this is Alyssa Targaryen, this is yet another Daemon Velaryon with classic silver hair and purple eyes. The text never actually says what she looked like. Now, artwork has assumed she looked like other Targaryens, such as the Season 7 Histories and Lore motion comics, that last Scion of Valyria thing, which is free on YouTube, depicts her at left here. I come back again to the example of Nettles, that there were already several instances in which House Targaryen intermarried with non-white people in the past. The traits just got thinned out over the generations, so it's not physically impossible that this is Daenerys the Dreamer. Consider that Aegon V, Egg from the Tales of Duncan Egg, had a Dornish grandmother, Miriam Martell, the wife of Daeron II. His maternal grandmother was Dornish, and he just came out looking like a Valyrian. Some of his brothers look mixed race, like Baelor Breakspear. His uncle, Baelor Breakspear, looks mixed race, but his father, Mycard, doesn't. Mykar's mother was Dornish, and he looks Valyrian, whereas his brother Baelor has dark hair. Sometimes it's random, but Egg had a Dornish grandmother, and he ended up just not looking Dornish. And because Egg is a direct ancestor of Daenerys, yes, I did the math, Daenerys is 1/32nd Dornish, her grandfather's grandfather's mother. And those of you in the comments section for this video, yes, we've all heard the joke before. You got a little Dornishman in you, would you like some? Okay, it's not original or clever. Guys, it's a cliche. I know you've heard it before. You know I know you've heard it before. We all know that joke. You don't need to repeat it. Please restrain yourselves. Juvenile. Now, Aenar Targaryen is Daenerys the Dreamer's father. He is 7 generations removed from Aegon the Conqueror, with Aenar being the first generation, Aegon a century later being generation number 7. And Aenar is 20 generations removed from Daenerys Targaryen, with her as generation 20. Aegon V didn't even look like his Dornish grandmother. So maybe this is possible, but let me be clear, I myself think, while possible, I didn't really get the sense this is what they were going for. For 2 reasons. First, 20 normal generations, yeah, but or 7 normal generations to Aegon the Conqueror and all of his sisters look silver-haired. That with all the heavy incest they were practicing, I think that would take a lot longer to breed out those traits. that it seems unlikely that you would retain that. So, second, just nothing definitive, and it was weeks ago, but the way it was described to me, it sounded like they were two different characters. Like, the biracial dragon rider girl sounded like she'd be a major character from the beginning, whereas when I asked about, well, do Aenar and Daenerys show up, I was told, well, yeah, but not right away. So it sounded like they were two different characters. I'm leaning more towards the possibility of the last one, number 4. She might actually be another member of House Targaryen, but like a cousin, or even possibly a half-sister of Daenerys, this other child of Aenar Targaryen. And the one clue to that is, this is the quote about Aenar from the World of Ice and Fire in the Conquest chapter. The Targaryens were of pure Valyrian blood, Dragonlords of ancient lineage. 12 years before the Doom of Valyria, 114 before Conquest, Aenar Targaryen sold his holdings in the Freehold and the lands of the Long Summer, and moved with all his wives, wealth, slaves, dragons, siblings, kin, and children to Dragonstone, a bleak island citadel beneath a smoking mountain in the narrow sea. Aenar Targaryen had multiple wives. This is confirmed. And they also said, like, Aegon the Conqueror married both of his sisters at the same time. And it said that this was uncommon among the Dragonlords to practice polygamy, but not unheard of either. And so this is book canon, he had multiple wives. Maybe this is simply one of his children by a different wife, making her a half-sister to Daenerys. It's certainly possible and doesn't contradict anything we already knew. Or maybe she's just a cousin of Daenerys, like a cousin of the main Targaryen line through a younger sibling. Like this is Daenerys' younger first cousin or something. I do think that for such a prominent character, they might want to, or even Martin himself, might want to tie her back into the Targaryens. So if we have this biracial dragon rider who's not just a dragon rider, but I'm a Targaryen, much as, example I'm using is just as Nettles is apparently a cousin of the main Targaryen children of Rhaenyra and the Dance of the Dragons. So I'm leaning more towards maybe she's like some bastard niece of Aenar or something, but still a Targaryen. I have no way of proving this. And she might just be from some ally, even if she's not a Targaryen by blood, she's one of their political allies because they're both members of the Young Dragons faction. We shall see. I don't know. Anything is possible. Now, in this video, I talked about the Young Dragons. Next, I'm going to talk about their enemies, the Sphinxes.